quickly went over this. In fact, I asked some people later, did you understand how I came to that conclusion? And it was not clear. I could see. Some of you still have a copy of this chart on Revelation. Do you have this one? Good. Okay. You have the 7 years tribulation. You have the harlot system or false religion in charge here at the first half, the first 3.5 years of this period of time. It is destroyed. That's what that X crossed out. When the beast comes to power, he makes certain it's destroyed. At the same time, when he kills the 2 witnesses, as we see here. But the beast then reigns for the next 42 months. And during that time, actually at this very point here, halfway through, is when the daily sacrifices that apparently, I can't prove this biblically, I'm just assuming, how are the Jews going to be able to get the Muslims to let them rebuild a temple on the Temple Mount? They couldn't even discuss it now. And I'm thinking, well, it may not occur until this political figure rises up. And at the early part of this, he's not really the beast. Somewhere in this first 3.5 years, the demonic force that has been bound in the bottomless pit is going to be released to possess that man who is to be the beast. And he's going to then reveal his true colors when he comes into the pleasant land here at the halfway point, and also destroys the harlot and also kills the 2 witnesses. A lot of things are going on right then and there at that point. But he stops the morning and evening sacrifices because he wants that acclaim all to himself. And in verse 13, then Daniel says, "Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto that certain saint which spake, How long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot?" And he said unto me, unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. Now remember last week, I told you that that's an inexact translation. I'm not really certain why the translators did this. I guess they were trying to make it easy for themselves, but it's misleading. Because down in verse 26, it talks about a vision of the morning and the evening, which was told was true. But you go back through the whole 8th chapter of the book of Daniel, you can't find any prior reference to a vision concerning evening and mornings. But this is what is being referred to in the Hebrew. And I think some translations drop that out. I'm not sure if you have that. But until 2,300 morning and evenings. Those are 2,300 morning and evening sacrifices. How long? The question is a very Jewish, Hebrew question. And some of you may not realize that there was a morning sacrifice and an evening sacrifice, that they were commanded by law to maintain in the temple.
What chapter?
We're in 8 all night, although I do skip around. I skipped over to Revelation. But in Daniel, right now I'm not going anywhere else but 8. What does it say there in verse 14?
Well, I mean, what chapter in Revelation are you in?
I'm not. I'm in chapter 8 of Daniel. I've lost you.
Oh.
I'm sorry. Anybody have another translation? Yes.
No, I got King James.
No.
New International Version.
Does it say evening and mornings?
He said to me, it will take 2,300 evenings and mornings, and the sanctuary will be consecrated.
Okay, do you understand this?
It just says days.
I know, that's the good old King James, isn't it? I apologize. If it wasn't that I didn't know the original language at that point, and I've checked this out myself, I would not be free to tell you what I'm telling you. I don't put myself up above, Bible scholars and translators, but I can dig. And sometimes I can find out when one translation puts it one way and another translation puts it another way. I want to find out why, how come, and then you have to make a decision. But the fact that in verse 26, look down in the King James Version, verse 26. You're not in the King James, but you are. Read that down in verse 26.
Read 26.
Verse 26 of chapter 8.
Okay. And the vision of the evening and the morning which was told is true.
Okay, that's far enough. Doesn't that raise a question mark in your head? Because prior to that, in that whole chapter 8, there is no reference to a vision about evening and mornings. There is in the Hebrew. The original language here. Could have been Aramaic. I have to check that one out too.
Isn't that the way their days ran though? That
Yes.
from evening to morning?
Yes. To them, the evening and the morning was the first day, and behold, it was very good. You didn't start the day at midnight. Our approach is really kind of
Sundown
ludicrous.
to sundown to
6 a.m.
sundown, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
from sundown to sundown. Okay, but my point is, it was more than just evening and morning. The question was about sacrifices. And there was an evening sacrifice as well as a morning sacrifice. And so this is what the question related to. And so do you see down here, starting at the same point as when the beast comes to power, I begin the time of 2,300 evenings and mornings. Do you see that? And do you understand the math? I'm going slow here because I'm slow in math too. I should have got my chalkboard out here. But if I lose you, let me know. You divide 2,300 by 2. And what do you get?
1,150.
What did you say?
1,150.
Okay. And if you see, the 2,300 evenings and mornings is literally 1,150 days. And you might say, well, so what?
Is that 3.5 years?
No. It takes 1,260 days.
Oh, okay.
Now, see, you're thinking. I appreciate that. You're thinking. You're keeping a step ahead of me. I'm happy over that. That's good. That means I haven't lost you. Okay. The whole 3.5 years goes from this line here to this line here. This dark line over here, vertical, is Armageddon. This is when Christ, and we, is it okay for me to say we?
Uh-huh.
When we come back with him. Okay, glory. But the point is, the 1,150 days, or 2,300 evening and mornings, fall 110 days short of the full 1,260 days, or 42 months with 30 days to a month in the Jewish calendar. It falls 110 days short of that period of time. This is important, and I tried to emphasize this last week as well. You see, when the Antichrist comes in and takes over the pleasant land, takes over Jerusalem, it's represented in the 12th chapter of Revelation as the woman that flees into the wilderness. This is Israel, and that's the bulk of the nation. They flee. And it says into the wilderness. Okay, I have to go ahead and dip into Daniel 11 at this point. I will come back to Daniel 8, and I will come back then after that to Daniel 11 again. But I want to show you, and at this point I haven't laid the foundation for chapter 11. At this point I'm kind of just spoon feeding you, which I acknowledge is never fair. But this is so much of a parallel, I can't avoid it. The he here in verse 41 is a willful king of the north. Remember the north, the king of the north throughout the 11th chapter refers to the Seleucid Empire. And only this is a yet future king. Most of Daniel 11 is history until you come down to verse 36. And this is yet future. He, just take me at my word here because I haven't proven it here. He shall enter also into the glorious land. This is the same event that's referred to about the Antichrist or the little horn going into the pleasant land. It's just a different terminology, but it's nevertheless the same event. And many countries shall be overthrown, but these shall escape out of his hand, even Edom and Moab, and chief of the children of Ammon. Okay, in the Old Testament, here's Ammon, Moab, and it said Edom too, didn't it? Edom, Moab, and most of Ammon. Edom is down here off the map. I could show it to you over here, but then it's going to be hard for those in the back to see it. Edom is down here south of the Dead Sea. Moab is to the east of the Dead Sea, and Ammon is just above it. By the way, what is the capital city of the kingdom of Jordan today called? You drawing a blank on this? If I'm not mistaken.
Amman.
Thank you! Come to the head of the class. Yes, Amman. Ammon. I call it Ammon. Amman is probably closer to the original. And I got to take you back to Revelation. Let me turn this off momentarily. I'm not sure if we're going to need it on right away or not. Revelation chapter 12. And as you know, I interpret, as I said before, the woman in this chapter as Israel. It is parallel to the dream that God gave Joseph about the 12 stars bowing down to him and the sun and the moon. And here you have a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, a crown of 12 stars on her head. And she was ready to bring forth a child. Some people think that's Jesus, but this is prophecy. A lot of people try to jump back and forth. And I'm thinking, that's not justifiable exegesis. Exegesis is what you draw out of the text. Eisegesis is what you read into the text. That's a fancy word, and I shouldn't bother you with it. But it says here that after that man-child is caught up to God in his throne, which, as I have indicated here on this chart, as being the 144,000 Jews, that little triangle there means they're raptured, okay? They are seen over in chapter 14 of Revelation as already being in heaven. In chapter 7, they're seen as being on earth. They have to be raptured somewhere between chapter 7 and chapter 14. I'm saying it's there in chapter 12, all right? That's right now not an important point. I'm trying to bring in Ammon, Moab, and Ammon, and is it chief of the children of, how did I go there? I don't like to stumble over the word. Edom, Moab, and chief of the children of Ammon. That's what I thought. So it's mostly down toward the south of the Dead Sea. Have you ever heard of Petra?
Yes. Yes.
It wouldn't surprise me if that would be a place that Israel will be fleeing to during that period of time. But it says here that the woman, verse 6, fled in, I'm in Revelation 12, verse 6, the woman fled into the wilderness, where she hath a place prepared of God that they should feed her there 1,260 days. That's the last 3.5 years leading up to Armageddon. Going on down to verse 13. And it's talking about when the dragon, this is a symbol of Satan himself, verse 13, saw that he was cast under the earth. I've skipped over some things that's been going on in this chapter, but I need to get to where I'm going. He, the devil, the dragon, persecuted the woman which had brought forth a man-child. And to the woman, verse 14, were given 2 wings of a great eagle. Now remember what